The command came out sharp enough to cut through the cabin noise. "Stand up, right now. This seat isn't yours." A ripple of gasps moved through first class as the girl froze, one hand still gripping her boarding pass, the other pressed flat against the armrest, like it was the only thing keeping her upright. The plane hadn't even finished boarding. The door was still open, and already the flight felt hijacked. 17-year-old Jordan Williams didn't look up at first. She stared at the thin strip of carpet between her sneakers, counted the fibers focused on breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Her heart slammed anyway. Too loud, too fast. The man across the aisle shifted in his seat, irritated eyes flicking from the girl to his watch. Somewhere behind her, a woman sighed like this was an inconvenience, not a public shaming. The flight attendant loomed closer. Late 40s, crisp uniform, hair pulled tight, the kind of posture that filled space without asking permission. Her smile never reached her eyes. "You need to move to economy. We'll sort it out later." She said it louder this time, like volume could turn an order into truth. Jordan lifted her head. Her face was young, tired, careful. She had the look of someone used to staying small. "I'm in the right seat," she said. Her voice barely carried past the row. "Seat 1D. That's what my ticket says." A woman 2 rows up leaned into the aisle to see better. White hair. Pearls. Her mouth tightened. Another passenger pulled out a phone thumb, hovering unsure. The air felt thin, stretched like the moment before glass breaks. The attendant's jaw flexed. She glanced toward the front, then back at Jordan. "This seat is needed. We have a situation." She didn't say whose situation. She didn't have to. Everyone could see it forming a few rows back, where a young white woman in designer athleisure stood half in the aisle, half in her parents', space arms crossed, lips pressed flat in practiced annoyance. Her mother murmured something into her ear. Her father stared straight ahead, pretending not to see. Jordan's fingers curled around the boarding pass. The paper was already soft from being folded and unfolded too many times. She had checked it at the gate, checked it again when she sat down. She checked it now like the letters might rearrange themselves if she looked long enough. They didn't. Seat 1D, first class, paid, confirmed, real. "I'm not moving," Jordan said. It came out steadier than she felt. A few heads turned. The aisle tightened. The plane seemed to hold its breath. The attendant's smile vanished. Her voice dropped, sharp, controlled. "You're delaying this flight. That's not a choice you get to make." She leaned closer, lowering her tone, as if that made it kinder. "Honey, we can handle this the easy way, or we can make it official." Official. The word landed heavy. Jordan swallowed. She could feel eyes on her skin, weighing her deciding things without saying them. She was alone. No parent beside her. No business suit. No silver hair that came with assumed authority. Just a hoodie, a backpack under the seat, and a face people underestimated. Across the aisle, an older man cleared his throat. He didn't speak, but his hands tightened on the armrests. He had seen this before. Not this girl, not this plane, but the shape of it. The way power leaned where it thought it belonged. The young woman behind them stepped forward. "Mom," she whispered, not even trying to keep the impatience out of her voice. "We're missing our window." Her mother lifted her chin, eyes cool, scanning Jordan like an obstacle on the road. The father finally looked over. His gaze flicked down, then away. He said nothing. The attendant straightened and reached for the intercom phone at the galley wall. "I'm calling the cockpit," she said. "Final warning." Jordan's chest tightened. This was happening too fast. She thought of her mother's voice the night before. Careful, worried. "Text me when you land." She thought of the long security line, the cold floor under her shoes, the way the agent had looked at her boarding pass twice before handing it back. She thought of the summer program, waiting on the other side of the ocean. Her first time leaving the country alone. Her first time believing she belonged somewhere bigger. "Wait." The word slipped out before she could stop it. The attendant paused, hand still hovering near the phone. "Yes, I need to make a call," Jordan said. "Just one." A low chuckle drifted from the seats behind her. A man muttered, "Here we go." The attendant frowned. "You can do that later." "The door is still open," Jordan said. Her pulse thundered, but her eyes didn't drop. "I'm allowed one call." The attendant studied her measuring. Then she nodded once, tight and reluctant. "Make it quick." Jordan pulled her phone from her pocket. The screen shook in her hand. She scrolled past messages she hadn't answered yet, past reminders and notes, until she reached the contact she rarely used. "Dad." She hesitated for half a second. Then she tapped. It rang once, twice. The attendant turned away, already half convinced this would end with security. The young woman behind them exhaled sharply. Her mother whispered something soothing, confident. The father checked his watch again. The call connected. Jordan didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Hi, Dad," she said. "I'm on the plane." "There's a problem with my seat." Silence on the other end, brief but heavy. Then a voice, calm, familiar, edged with something colder beneath it. "What kind of problem?" "They want me to move," Jordan said. She kept her words simple. "They say I'm delaying the flight." The attendant's head snapped around. "Excuse me," she said, stepping closer. "You need to put that on airplane mode." "The door is still open," Jordan said quietly. She didn't look away from the phone. "Dad, the flight attendant says the seat is needed for another passenger." There was another pause, longer this time. The kind that makes rooms feel smaller. Jordan could almost picture him standing still, wherever he was listening without interrupting. "Put her on," the voice said. Jordan lifted the phone. She held it out hand steady now. "He wants to speak to you." The attendant hesitated. Her mouth opened, closed. She took the phone with 2 fingers like it might bite. "This is senior cabin crew," she said, her tone brisk, professional. "Your daughter is refusing to comply with crew instructions." "I'm not calling to argue," the voice on the phone replied. It was even. "Controlled. I'm calling to request a verification. Check the manifest. Handle it by the book. And be mindful that my daughter is a minor traveling alone." The attendant blinked. "Minor?" She glanced at Jordan again, really looked this time. The hoodie, the backpack, the small shoulders pulled tight. Her grip on the phone loosened. "And who am I speaking with?" she asked. There was no rush in the answer. No need for volume. "Daniel Williams." The name didn't land all at once. It slid in quietly, then spread. The attendant's eyes shifted, searching her memory. Her training the emails she skimmed and forgot. Her face changed. Just a little. Enough. "I'll check," she said. Her voice had softened not by much, but enough to notice. She handed the phone back to Jordan and turned toward the cockpit steps, suddenly careful, measured. The cabin exhaled. Not relief. Anticipation. The older man across the aisle leaned forward an inch. The woman with pearls pressed her lips together, uneasy now. The young white woman's mother straightened her confidence, flickering just for a moment, like a light that wasn't as secure as she thought. Jordan lowered the phone to her lap. Her hands were still shaking, but her spine felt straighter. She stared ahead, not at the attendant, not at the family behind her, but at the space beyond the open door where the jet bridge met the night. The plane was quiet. Now, too quiet. Every second stretched tight with things unsaid. Somewhere up front, a door closed softly. Footsteps moved. A voice murmured, low, urgent. Jordan didn't know what would happen next. She only knew this wasn't just about a seat anymore. It hadn't been for a while. The cockpit door didn't slam. It closed softly, deliberately, and that was somehow worse. The sound carried down the narrow aisle like a held breath. Jordan felt it in her chest before she understood why. The attendant disappeared behind the curtain phone call, unfinished, leaving a vacuum where authority had just stood. Conversations didn't resume. They didn't dare. The plane sat still, engines humming low, the open door letting in a draft of night air and jet fuel that mixed with recycled cabin scent and tension. A man in the first row shifted and cleared his throat, then stopped himself as if remembering that words could be dangerous here. The young woman behind Jordan rolled her shoulders and glanced at her mother, who offered a tight smile, meant to soothe, meant to signal control. It wobbled. The father finally leaned forward and whispered, "Susan, maybe we should just sit tight." He kept his voice low, the way men do when they realize the room is no longer on their side, but don't want to admit it yet. Jordan stared at the seat back in front of her. The stitching formed tiny, uneven lines. She counted them without meaning to. Her phone buzzed once in her hand, a single vibration. A message she didn't open. Her dad didn't like texting when things were serious. He liked clarity. Paper trails, systems. He had taught her that quietly over the years, never as a lecture, always as a habit. Say less. Check facts. Let process do the work. Footsteps returned quicker now, more than one set. The curtain slid open again. The attendant came back with another woman Jordan hadn't seen before. Mid-50s. Calm posture. Glasses low on her nose. The kind of person who looked like she listened first and spoke after. Her badge caught the light when she stepped into the aisle. Operations manager. The word registered with a few passengers. Murmurs stirred, hushed and uncertain. "Let's pause boarding," the manager said, not loudly, but with enough authority that it didn't need volume. The gate agent's voice crackled faintly from outside, repeating the instruction. The open door stayed open. The jet bridge creaked. The original attendant took a step back, just half a step. But it mattered. The manager looked at Jordan directly. "Miss," she said, "may I see your boarding pass?" Jordan handed it over. Her fingers brushed the woman's hand. Warm. Steady. The manager read it carefully, then turned toward the front and spoke into her radio, quiet, precise. She didn't ask the family behind Jordan anything yet. She didn't look at them. That omission landed heavier than a confrontation. A man 2 rows up leaned toward his seatmate, an older woman with a cane tucked neatly under her legs. "I flew this route for 20 years, he whispered. "This is not how they usually handle things." The woman nodded, eyes fixed on Jordan. Sympathy written plain across her face. The manager nodded once to herself, then returned the boarding pass. "Thank you," she said. "Please remain seated." She turned then finally to the family behind. "Sir, ma'am," she said, "I need to understand what you requested and why." Susan straightened. Her voice regained some of its edge, polished and practiced. "Our daughter was separated from us. We were told this could be adjusted." She gestured vaguely, as if past favors could be pulled forward into the present by will alone. The manager listened without interrupting. When Susan finished, she asked, "Did anyone tell you this seat belonged to your daughter?" "No," Susan said, then added quickly. "But thank you," the manager said. She turned away before the "but" could land. She spoke again into the radio. Her tone changed, sharpened just enough. "I need a manifest confirmation for seat 1 and a review of any prior reassignment notes." The father swallowed. He leaned back. The daughter folded her arms tighter, eyes darting now, reading the room. The energy had shifted. The easy assumption that someone else would bend had evaporated. The cockpit curtain opened again. The captain stepped out, shoulders squared, face composed but strained. He stood beside the manager, not in front of her. A small detail, an important one. They spoke quietly, heads angled toward each other. The captain glanced once at Jordan. His expression wasn't hostile. It was troubled. He nodded slowly, as if pieces were clicking into place in an order he didn't like. Jordan's phone buzzed again. She didn't look. She didn't need to. Her pulse had slowed. Not calm. Focused. The kind of focus that comes after fear has burned itself down to something colder. From farther back, a voice rose, not loud but clear. "She has a ticket," the older woman with the cane said. "If that's her seat, that's her seat." She shrugged, slightly unapologetic. "That's how it works." A few heads nodded. Not many. Enough. The manager raised a hand, acknowledging without encouraging applause. "Thank you, ma'am." She turned back to the captain. "We're holding until we finish verification," she said. The captain hesitated, then nodded. "Understood." He spoke into his own radio voice, clipped professional. "Boarding hold." He didn't say why. He didn't need to. The attendant who had first confronted Jordan stood off to the side, now arms folded, eyes fixed on the floor. Her authority had drained out of her posture. She looked smaller not because she was, but because certainty had left her. Jordan felt a presence beside her. The older man across the aisle leaned slightly toward her, careful not to intrude. "You doing okay, kid?" he asked quietly. She nodded once. "Thank you." Her voice surprised her again. It didn't shake. Minutes stretched. Not many. Enough to feel like a test. The radio crackled. The manager listened, her face unreadable. She nodded again, slow, deliberate. "All right," she said finally. She turned to the family. "Your daughter is ticketed in economy. There is no reassignment authorization for this seat. We will proceed as booked." Susan's mouth opened. Her voice rose sharp with disbelief. "This is ridiculous. We fly this airline all the time." "I understand," the manager said. Her tone was firm, not unkind. "But we will not displace another passenger to resolve this." The daughter scoffed. "Are you serious?" "Yes," the manager said. She turned to the captain. "We can resume boarding once this is settled." The father stood abruptly, then seemed to catch himself. He sat back down, jaw tight. Susan looked around, searching for allies. She found none. Phones were out now, discreet but present. Faces were watching, not with excitement, but with something closer to judgment. Jordan exhaled slowly. The sound felt loud in her ears. She hadn't moved. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't needed to. Still, she knew this wasn't over. Not really. The way Susan's eyes lingered told her that much. This kind of entitlement didn't dissolve quietly. It retreated, regrouped, waited. The manager met Jordan's eyes once more. "We're sorry for the delay," she said. "Thank you for your patience." Jordan nodded. She wanted to say more. She didn't. She had learned early that dignity didn't need speeches. The captain stepped back toward the cockpit, shoulders still stiff. The manager followed him halfway, then turned back to the aisle. "Boarding will resume shortly," she announced. The open door stayed open. Night air drifted in. Somewhere outside, a cart beeped as it passed. Life continued. The plane remained suspended in a moment that felt larger than a seat assignment, larger than a flight to London. Jordan's phone buzzed a third time. She finally glanced down. One new message. Just 3 words. "I'm here." "Hold." She locked the screen and slipped the phone back into her pocket. Her hands were steady now. Whatever was coming next, it wasn't about convincing anyone she belonged. That question had already been answered. The delay stretched past discomfort and into something sharper, a taut wire humming beneath the skin. Boarding had resumed, but no one moved with ease. People filed past Jordan's row, slowly eyes flicking toward her, and then away, as if proximity might make them complicit. The family behind her stayed seated, rigid whispers, clipped and poisonous. Susan's voice cut low and fast, the way it does when someone is trying to keep control without witnesses. Frank answered with a single nod, at a time jaw clenched. Their daughter stared straight ahead. Cheeks flushed, fingers digging crescents into her sleeves. The captain's voice came over the intercom, measured and practiced. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We are completing final checks." The words were smooth. The pause afterward was not. The plane did not move. The hum of systems felt louder now, like a heartbeat amplified. Jordan adjusted the strap of her backpack under the seat. The zipper teeth clicked softly. That sound drew the attendant's eyes, the one who had first confronted her. Karen. The name tag looked heavier now, like it carried weight she hadn't noticed before. Karen took a step forward, stopped, then took another. She leaned in just enough that her shadow crossed Jordan's hands. "Listen," Karen said quietly. "We can still make this easy." She tried for warmth and missed. The edges of her words scraped. "If you're flexible, we can offer you a voucher. Meals, a window seat, It's a long flight. You don't want to start it like this." Jordan looked up. The pitch of Karen's voice told her this wasn't about generosity. It was about erasing a problem. Jordan shook her head. "I'm not moving," she said. The words landed flat and final. Karen's mouth tightened. She straightened gaze, flicking to the operations manager at the front, then to the cockpit curtain. She walked away without another word, heels striking the floor harder than necessary. The sound echoed sharp and angry. Across the aisle, the older man who had spoken earlier leaned back, arms crossed. He watched Karen go, then glanced at Jordan. "You handled that right," he murmured. His wife squeezed his wrist, a small, silent agreement. A commotion stirred near the front. The operations manager returned this time with a tablet held flat against her palm. Her expression had shifted again from neutral to intent. She stopped beside the captain as he emerged from the cockpit, their heads, close voices low. Jordan caught fragments carried by the air. "Verification complete. Minor traveling alone. No authorization. Customer pressure documented." Susan stood abruptly. "This is unbelievable," she snapped loud enough to draw eyes. "Frank, say something." Frank rose more slowly, smoothing his jacket. His voice was calmer, but the strain underneath cracked it. "There has to be some discretion here. We're loyal customers." The operations manager turned. "Loyalty doesn't override policy," she said. Her tone was even, but it carried the weight of a line drawn. "Please take your seats." Susan's laugh was brittle. "So that's it." She gestured at Jordan, sharp and accusing. "She gets to hold up an entire plane." Jordan felt the heat rise, but she stayed still. Before she could answer, another voice cut in clear and steady. "She's not holding anything up," the woman with the cane said. "You are." A murmur rippled. Not applause. Recognition. Susan's face flushed. She opened her mouth, then closed it when she saw phones angled toward her, now not Jordan. The calculus changed again. The captain raised a hand. "Ma'am," he said to Susan, "please sit down. We're not having this discussion in the aisle." Susan hesitated, then sat lips pressed thin. Frank followed, shoulders slumped a fraction. Their daughter stared at her lap jaw, trembling. Jordan's phone vibrated again. This time it rang. The sound cut clean through the cabin, a sharp chime that made heads turn. Karen's eyes snapped back. The operations manager frowned slightly. The captain stiffened. Jordan didn't answer immediately. She felt every gaze land. She lifted the phone slowly. "Dad?" she said, keeping her voice low. "Put him on speaker," the voice said. "Calm. Precise." Jordan hesitated. The operations manager nodded once, almost imperceptibly. Jordan tapped the screen. "This is Daniel Williams," the voice said, filling the cabin without raising volume. "I'm speaking with flight operations right now. Captain, I understand you're trying to keep this on schedule." The captain stepped forward, posture rigid. "Sir," he said, "we are resolving a seating dispute." "No," Daniel said. "You are resolving a process failure. There is a difference." He paused. "I am not asking for special treatment. I am asking for compliance with your own procedures, which appear to have been set aside under customer pressure." A hush fell. Susan's head snapped up. Frank's eyes widened. The operations manager's jaw tightened, then relaxed as if a door had just closed behind her. "We've verified the manifest," the manager said. "Seat 1D is assigned correctly." "Thank you," Daniel said. "Next question. Why was a minor traveling alone threatened with removal for declining an unauthorized reassignment?" Karen flinched. The sound was small but visible. She looked at the floor. The captain swallowed. "Sir, the intent was to prevent further delay." "By escalating prematurely," Daniel replied. His tone remained level. "Captain, you have discretion in matters of safety." This was not one of them. The captain nodded once. "Understood." Susan surged to her feet again. "This is outrageous," she said, pointing. "You can't let some executive bully, ma'am," the operations manager said sharply. "Sit down. Now." Susan froze, shocked by the tone. She sat. Daniel continued. "I've requested that ground operations log this incident in full. Statements will be taken after landing. In the meantime, boarding proceeds as booked. No further engagement with my daughter unless operationally necessary. Is that clear?" "Yes, sir," the captain said. "Yes, sir," the manager echoed. Karen didn't speak. Her face had gone pale. The call ended. The silence afterward was heavy, like a storm breaking somewhere far off. Jordan lowered the phone hands steady. Her chest ached, not from fear now, but from the sudden release of it. The captain cleared his throat and turned to the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We are closing the door shortly. Please take your seats." Movement resumed, tentative at first, then steadier. The jet bridge door thumped shut. The outside world sealed away. The plane felt different now. Not calmer. Sharper. As if something had been named and could not be unnamed. Karen retreated to the galley, shoulders hunched. The operations manager remained near the front tablet in hand, eyes scanning noting. Susan stared straight ahead, fury simmering under humiliation. Frank leaned toward her, whispering urgently. Their daughter wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand, mascara smearing. Across the aisle, the older man met Jordan's gaze. He gave a small nod. Not approval. Respect. The engine spooled louder. The safety demonstration began. Jordan buckled her seatbelt, the click loud in her ears. She looked forward, not at the family behind her, not at Karen, not at the phones still recording. She thought of her father's voice. Process, facts, hold. The plane pushed back from the gate. The city lights slid past the window, distant and indifferent. Jordan rested her head against the seat and closed her eyes, knowing the hardest part hadn't been the confrontation. It was the waiting, and whatever was coming next would not be quiet. The plane lifted into the night with a shudder that rippled through the cabin metal and momentum forcing everything forward, whether it was ready or not. Jordan felt the pressure in her ears, the familiar squeeze, but something else pressed harder now, heavier. The sense that the flight had crossed a line long before it ever left the ground. Once the seatbelt sign chimed off, the cabin didn't relax the way it usually did. People shifted, whispered, pretended to read. A few screens flickered on, but no one really watched. Eyes kept drifting back to the same places. Seat 1D, the galley, the row behind. Karen emerged with the beverage cart movements, stiff rehearsed. She avoided Jordan's eyes, focused instead on the mechanics of service. Cups, ice, bottles aligned just so. Her hands trembled when she thought no one was looking. Jordan noticed anyway. She noticed everything now. The way power recoiled when it realized it had gone too far. The operations manager took a seat in the jump seat near the front tablet balanced on her knee. She wasn't going anywhere. Not yet. She watched Karen with a quiet intensity that felt colder than anger. Documentation in progress, Jordan thought, though she didn't know why the phrase came to her so clearly. She had grown up around boardrooms, and compliance language had learned early that consequences rarely arrived with shouting. They arrived with records. Susan broke the silence first. She leaned forward, voice sharp but pitched low. "This isn't over," she said to no one in particular. "People like you think you can humiliate us and walk away." Jordan didn't turn around. She stared at the safety card tucked into the seat pocket, the illustrated faces frozen in calm obedience. The older man across the aisle shifted again. "Ma'am," he said without raising his voice, "maybe it's time to let it go." Susan laughed, short and bitter. "Easy for you to say." Frank leaned closer to her, his whisper urgent now. "Stop. You're making it worse." Their daughter pressed her palms to her eyes, shoulders shaking. "Mom, please," she said. "Just stop." Karen reached Jordan's row. She cleared her throat. "Would you like something to drink?" The question was professional, but it carried something else beneath it. A test. Jordan met her gaze. "Just water, please. No ice." Karen nodded quickly, grateful for the simplicity. She poured hands, still shaking, and passed the cup over. Their fingers brushed again, lighter this time. Karen flinched, then steadied herself. She moved on without another word. Jordan took a slow sip. The water tasted flat metallic. She didn't care. The act of drinking grounded her, anchored her back in her body. She felt the vibration of the engines through the floor, constant and unforgiving. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message this time. She didn't open it immediately. She waited until the cart passed, until Karen disappeared behind the curtain again. Then she looked. Just one line. "We're escalating internally. Focus on the flight. Love you." Jordan exhaled through her nose. "Love you too," she typed back, then stopped herself and deleted it. She sent nothing. There would be time, later. This wasn't over, and they both knew it. Up front, the captain emerged, briefly conferring with the operations manager in hushed tones. His shoulders looked heavier than before. He nodded, rubbed his forehead, then retreated to the cockpit. Jordan caught his eye for half a second as he turned. Regret flickered there, quick and unguarded. It didn't erase what had happened. It didn't have to. As the cabin lights dimmed, the atmosphere shifted again. Darkness softened edges, but it didn't erase memory. Screens glowed. The soft clink of cutlery began. A few passengers stretched, trying to reclaim normalcy. The woman with the cane, twadmost, head tilted toward the window. The older man beside her kept watch, gaze steady, protective without being intrusive. Susan fell quiet at last, not because she was done, but because she was calculating. Jordan could feel it like a low-frequency hum. Frank stared straight ahead, face drawn, the confidence he'd boarded with stripped thin. Their daughter curled inward, headphones on, now hiding. Time passed unevenly. An hour. 2. The Atlantic stretched beneath them, dark and indifferent. Jordan's body began to ache, the delayed response to adrenaline. Her shoulders throbbed. Her jaw felt tight. She rolled her neck slowly, careful not to draw attention. She didn't want to be seen now. Not like that. Karen returned with a tray of meals. She placed Jordan's down gently, eyes still averted. As she turned to leave, the operations manager spoke. "Karen," she said quietly. "A word." Karen froze. For a moment, Jordan thought she might pretend not to hear. Then she nodded and followed the manager toward the galley. The curtain closed behind them. Voices dropped. The rest of the cabin pretended not to listen. No one fooled anyone. Jordan ate slowly, barely tasting the food. She watched reflections move across the curved wall of the cabin, distorted shapes of people who didn't know how close they were to something irreversible. She wondered what Karen was thinking back there. If she was angry, afraid, defensive, or if the weight of the moment had finally settled in. The curtain opened again. Karen emerged alone. Her face was blotchy eyes, red-rimmed. She walked straight past Jordan without looking, disappearing toward the back. The operations manager returned to her jump seat expression, unreadable. Susan noticed. She leaned forward again, hope sparking despite herself. "What's going on?" she demanded. The operations manager didn't look at her. "We'll speak after landing," she said. "Please remain seated." Susan scoffed, but there was no bite left in it. She sank back, folding her arms tight across her chest. Jordan leaned back and closed her eyes. She let the hum of the engines fill her, let the rhythm steady her breathing. She thought of home, of the kitchen table, of her dad's quiet presence, the way he listened more than he spoke. She thought of how small this had started. A seat, a request, a choice. She opened her eyes when she felt movement beside her. The older man across the aisle leaned over slightly. "You okay?" he asked again. Softer this time. She nodded. "Yeah, I think so." "You did good," he said. "Not loud enough for anyone else to hear. Don't let anyone tell you different." Jordan swallowed. "Thank you." He smiled a tired, knowing expression, then settled back. The plane pressed on through the dark, carrying with it a reckoning that had already begun to form far from the quiet hum of the cabin, in offices lit through the night, in inboxes filling fast, in decisions that would not be reversed. The lights over the Atlantic shifted from deep blue to a muted amber, the cabin settling into that suspended state where time felt diluted and unreal. Somewhere between dinner trays and half-watched movies, the plane became a quiet vessel carrying not just passengers, but consequences. Jordan lay still, eyes open, listening to the layered sounds of flight, the steady rush of air against the fuselage, the faint whine of systems, the occasional cough or rustle of fabric. Her body was exhausted, but her mind refused sleep. In the galley, voices rose and fell in controlled bursts. Not arguments, discussions, the kind that mattered. The operations manager spoke first, measured and precise. Karen responded once, then fell silent. Jordan couldn't hear the words, only the shape of them, and that was enough. She knew that tone. She had heard it in conference rooms and late-night calls growing up, the sound adults made when they realized a line had been crossed and paperwork would follow. Susan stirred again behind her. She leaned forward, voice sharp with restless energy. "Frank," she whispered. "They're talking about us." Frank didn't answer at first. His eyes stayed fixed on the seatback screen, though it had gone dark. He rubbed his temples slowly. "Susan," he said finally. "Stop. Just stop." "You always do this," she hissed. "You always think if you stay quiet, it goes away." Frank turned, then eyes flashing. "This isn't going away." He lowered his voice further. "Do you have any idea who that was on the phone?" Susan's mouth opened, then closed. She knew. She had known the moment the room shifted, the moment authority stopped bending toward her and snapped back into place. She looked away, chin high, pride bruised but not broken. Their daughter sat rigid, headphones still on, eyes fixed on nothing. She hadn't said a word in over an hour. Her fingers worried the sleeve of her sweatshirt, over and over, like she was trying to rub the moment out of existence. Jordan shifted in her seat, easing pressure off her hip. She glanced toward the galley again. The curtain moved. The operations manager stepped out, tablet tucked under her arm. She scanned the cabin once, slow and deliberate, then walked toward the cockpit. Karen did not follow. Minutes later, the captain's voice came over the intercom again. It sounded different now, less rehearsed, more careful. "Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate your patience this evening. We are proceeding as scheduled. Please remain seated." It wasn't an apology. It wasn't reassurance. It was containment. Jordan felt her phone vibrate again. She waited this time, counted to 5 in her head, then looked. A message from her father, longer than the others. "We've pulled initial reports. There are inconsistencies. We'll address it after landing. You did nothing wrong. I'm proud of you." The words hit harder than she expected. Her throat tightened. She blinked, steadying herself. She typed back slowly. "I just want to get there." She added nothing else. The plane cut through a pocket of turbulence, a sudden jolt that rattled trays and drew a few startled gasps. Jordan's fingers tightened on the armrest. The seatbelt sign chimed back on. Karen did not return to check it. Another attendant did, younger eyes, careful voice soft. "Please fasten your seatbelt," she said, making a point of addressing Jordan with the same respect as everyone else. Across the aisle, the older man caught Jordan's eye again. He raised his eyebrows slightly, a silent question. She nodded once. He leaned back, satisfied. The turbulence passed. The cabin lights dimmed further. Most people surrendered to sleep or the illusion of it. Susan did not. She sat rigid, eyes open, jaw clenched, running scenarios in her head. Jordan could feel it behind her like static. Frank stared at his hands, the knuckles pale. He had the look of someone calculating loss. Hours later, when the cabin was at its quietest, the operations manager returned to the aisle. She stopped beside Jordan's seat. "Miss Williams," she said softly. "May I speak with you for a moment?" Jordan's pulse spiked, but she nodded. Of course. They stepped into the galley, the curtain closing behind them. The space was small, bright, utilitarian. The manager leaned against the counter tablet, resting beside her. "I want to be clear," she said. "You are not in trouble. What happened tonight should not have happened." Jordan listened, hands clasped loosely in front of her. She didn't interrupt. We're documenting everything," the manager continued. "Statements from crew, passenger reports, video where applicable. This will be reviewed at the highest level." She paused. "I'm sorry you were put in that position." Jordan nodded. "Thank you." The manager studied her for a moment. "You handled yourself with remarkable composure, especially given your age." Jordan shrugged slightly. "I didn't really know what else to do." "Sometimes that's enough," the manager said. She opened the curtain. "You should get some rest." Jordan returned to her seat. The galley lights dimmed again. She settled back, pulled the blanket up to her chest, and finally, mercifully, sleep took her. She dreamed of movement, of doors opening and closing, of voices speaking without faces attached. She woke to the faint glow of dawn creeping along the edge of the window, the sky outside shifting from black to bruised purple to pale grey. The cabin stirred. Screens flickered back on. Someone stretched and yawned. The world resumed. Breakfast trays appeared. Jordan ate mechanically, still half lost in the fog of sleep. Karen did not serve her. The younger attendant did careful and kind. Their eyes met briefly. The attendant smiled, small and sincere. Susan whispered again, voice hoarse now. "Frank, what happens when we land?" Frank didn't answer. He didn't need to. The question hung between them, heavy with implication. The captain's voice returned, steadier now. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin our descent shortly. Local time is early morning. Please ensure your seatbelts are fastened." As the plane dipped and angled toward land, Jordan felt a strange calm settle over her. Whatever came next would come on the ground in rooms with windows and witnesses and records. The airstrip appeared through the clouds, grey and wet, stretching toward them. The wheels touched down with a jolt, a brief screech of rubber and metal. Applause scattered uneven. The plane slowed, taxied, came to rest. The seatbelt sign chimed off. People stood reaching for bags. Susan sprang up, urgency back in her movements. Frank stayed seated, staring forward. Their daughter rose slowly, eyes red, face closed. The operations manager stood at the front of the cabin, speaking quietly with ground staff, visible through the open door. Two figures waited just outside, suits dark, posture alert. Jordan didn't need to ask who they were. As passengers began to file out, the manager raised a hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, please allow us to assist row by row." Susan bristled. "This is absurd," she muttered. Jordan remained seated, heart pounding now, but her back straight. She watched as the aisle cleared as whispers followed those who passed her. When her row was reached, the manager stepped aside. "Miss Williams," she said, "please take your time." Jordan stood, shouldered her backpack, and walked toward the open door. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She could feel the weight shifting behind her, the center of gravity moving where it belonged. The jet bridge felt colder than the cabin, a long grey throat swallowing sound as Jordan stepped forward and felt solid ground under her feet again. The smell changed immediately. Damp concrete, coffee, early morning fatigue. She breathed it in, like proof that the night was ending even if the consequences were not. The operations manager walked a step ahead of her, not guiding, not escorting, just present. Two men in dark suits waited a few yards away, badges clipped but turned inward, posture professional and restrained. Not security in the dramatic sense, compliance, oversight, the kind that didn't raise voices and didn't miss details. Miss Williams, one of them said quietly, "Thank you for your patience. We'll just need a few minutes of your time." Jordan nodded. Her legs felt steady, but her chest tightened again. Not fear. Anticipation. The kind that comes when you know a story is about to be told by someone else in rooms you won't be allowed to enter. Behind her, voices rose. Susan's sharp and indignant. "What is this? Why are we being held?" "We have a connection." Frank's voice followed lower, urgent. "Susan, please." A uniformed airport staff member stepped in smoothly. "Ma'am, sir, please come this way." It was phrased like a request. It wasn't. Jordan didn't turn around. She didn't need to see their faces to know the shape of what was happening. Entitlement never vanished quietly. It cracked first. Then it argued. Then it blamed. They walked down a side corridor Jordan had never noticed before. Glass walls revealing the slow choreography of an airport waking up. Janitors moving with practiced ease. Screens flipping to morning departures. A woman in a navy blazer talking into a headset, eyes sharp, steps fast. The world went on indifferent to personal reckonings. They stopped outside a small conference room. The operations manager gestured toward a chair just inside. "Please," she said. "Have a seat. Someone will be with you shortly." Jordan sat. The chair was firm, utilitarian. The room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and printer ink. She set her backpack at her feet and folded her hands in her lap the way she had been taught to do when adults were deciding things about her. Her phone vibrated. She looked this time. A call. "Dad," she answered. "I'm off the plane," she said quietly. "I know," Daniel replied. "I'm on the ground. I won't come in unless you want me to." Jordan closed her eyes for a second. "Not yet," she said. "I'm okay." "I'm proud of you," he said again, softer this time. "Whatever happens next, remember that." She nodded, even though he couldn't see it. "I will." She ended the call and set the phone face down on the table. The door opened a minute later. Another woman stepped in, older than the operations manager, silver threaded through her dark hair posture, composed in a way that suggested long familiarity with difficult conversations. She introduced herself simply. "My name is Elaine Porter. I oversee flight standards and crew conduct for this region." She didn't sit immediately. She rested her hands on the back of a chair and looked at Jordan. Really looked. Not assessing. Listening. "I want to start by saying this should not have happened," Elaine said. "You were put in a position no passenger, especially a young one, should be put in." Jordan swallowed. "Thank you." Elaine nodded and sat. "We're beginning a formal review. Statements have already been logged from the crew and from several passengers. Video is being collected." She paused. "That includes footage taken by other passengers." Jordan's stomach tightened. She hadn't thought about that. The older man's phone. The pearl necklace woman. The quiet angles, the held breath moments captured forever. Elaine continued. "This process will take time. There will be interviews, training reviews, possible disciplinary actions. I can't discuss specifics yet." Jordan nodded again. She hadn't expected specifics. She had learned early that systems spoke in outcomes, not promises. What I can say, Elaine added, is that your refusal to move was not a violation of any policy. You complied with every lawful instruction. The moment things escalated beyond that, the failure was not yours. Jordan felt something loosen in her chest. Just a little. Elaine slid a card across the table. This has my direct line. If anyone contacts you directly about this incident, refer them to me. That includes media. Media. The word landed heavy. Jordan picked up the card, fingers brushing embossed letters. Thank you. Elaine stood. We'll arrange for you to continue your travel as planned. Take the rest of the day to rest. You've earned that. As Elaine left, the operations manager returned. She offered Jordan a small, genuine smile. You handled yourself with grace, she said. Not everyone does, even twice your age. Jordan managed a faint smile back. I didn't feel very graceful. You don't have to feel it for it to count, the manager said. They walked her back into the terminal, merging her into the flow of arriving passengers. The noise hit her all at once, wheels rolling, voices overlapping, announcements echoing off high ceilings. Life loud and unbothered. Her father waited near a pillar, hands in his coat pockets, shoulders relaxed but eyes sharp. He didn't rush her. He waited until she saw him. Then he opened his arms. Jordan stepped into them without hesitation. For a moment she let herself lean just a little. He smelled like coffee and cold air. Solid. Familiar. You okay? He asked quietly. She nodded against his shoulder. Yeah, I think so. He pulled back, looked at her face. There it is, he said softly. What? That look. The one that says you figured something out. Jordan frowned. About what? About power. Daniel said. About where it actually lives. He glanced past her toward the corridor where the Monroe family had been taken. It's not where people think. They walked together toward baggage claim. Jordan watched travelers reunite with loved ones, watched arguments and laughter and impatience unfold in small, ordinary ways. Somewhere behind glass and closed doors, reports were being written. Decisions weighed. Careers nudged toward different paths. As they waited for her bag, her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a call. It was a notification. A message from a number she didn't recognize. Did you see the video? Jordan stared at the screen, pulse quickening. She hadn't thought it would happen this fast. Daniel noticed her expression. What is it? She turned the phone toward him. He read the message, jaw tightening. He didn't look surprised. It's starting, he said. Jordan exhaled slowly. The night on the plane felt distant already, like something that had happened to someone else. But the weight of it, the meaning, was just beginning to settle. She watched her suitcase appear on the belt, scuffed and familiar. She reached out, grabbed it, and pulled it free. Let's go, she said. They walked toward the exit together, unaware of how many eyes were already on the story they had tried to keep contained. How many conversations were unfolding in offices across the city, across the industry, across a country that recognized the shape of what had happened and knew it was not small. The first headline broke before Jordan finished her coffee. It flashed across a screen above the baggage carousel, bold and breathless, stripped of nuance and hungry for reaction. Teen passenger confrontation delays international flight. She stopped walking. Daniel stopped with her. Around them, travelers flowed like pour around a stone eyes, up, then away, then back again. Phones chimed, one after another. The sound multiplied, a chain reaction. Jordan's phone vibrated in her hand until it felt alive. Messages stacked faster than she could read. "Did you see this? Is this you? Are you okay?" A clip auto-played before she could stop it. The camera angle was low and shaky, the aisle narrowed by bodies and judgment. Her own voice sounded distant, steadier than she remembered. "I'm in the right seat." That line looped, shared, clipped into something harder. Daniel took the phone gently and locked the screen. "Not here," he said. "Not yet." He guided her toward a quieter corner away from the open concourse. His face was composed, but she knew the tells. The way his jaw set. The way he scanned the room, not for threats, but for patterns. This was moving faster than anyone wanted. A woman with a rolling suitcase slowed as she passed recognition sparking. She hesitated, then offered a small nod. Jordan nodded back. No words. No need. Another man glanced, frowned, and turned to whisper. The story was already changing hands, mutating with each retelling. They found seats near a wall where the airport noise dulled to a hum. Daniel leaned in. "Listen to me," he said quietly. "You don't owe anyone anything. Not an explanation. Not a performance. If someone asks, you say no comment and you walk away." Jordan nodded. Her hands were steady, but her chest felt tight again. She had thought the worst part was on the plane. She was wrong. The plane had been a closed system. This was open air. A notification pushed through the lock screen, despite the silence setting. Airline reviewing incident involving minor passenger. Daniel exhaled through his nose. That wording, he said, already trying to get ahead of it. Across the terminal, a small cluster had formed near the exit. Suits, headsets, people who moved like they knew where they were going and expected others to make room. Daniel's phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID and stood. "Give me a minute." Jordan watched him step away. Posture straight, voice low. She couldn't hear the words, only the cadence. Not defensive, not apologetic, directive. He nodded once, then twice, then ended the call. When he returned, his expression had changed. Not alarmed. Focused. "They're setting up a review panel," he said. "Independent. Flight operations standards and passenger safety. It's the right move." He paused. "It also means this won't stay quiet." Jordan swallowed. "What about them?" Daniel followed her gaze toward the exit corridor, where two staff members stood with practiced neutrality. The Monroe family had already been moved through another door away from cameras. For now. Frank would be calculating. Susan would be furious. Their daughter would be silent, absorbing the cost of being adjacent to adults who mistook pressure for power. "They'll have their version," Daniel said. "Everyone does." Another clip surfaced, this one from farther back. The older woman with the cane voice, clear and calm. If that's her seat, that's her seat. The comments scrolled fast. Some praised, some sneered. Some tried to flatten the moment into talking points it had never asked to carry. Jordan leaned back and closed her eyes. She thought of the cabin again, the narrowness, the way eyes had weighed her. She thought of how quickly people had chosen sides when they believed there would be no consequence. Her phone vibrated again, a direct message request, then another. A reporter this time, badge icon and all. She ignored it. Daniel crouched slightly to meet her eye. "There's something else," he said. "I need to ask you before it becomes a question you can't avoid." She opened her eyes. "What?" "They're going to connect my role eventually," he said. "Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. The call, the process, people will draw lines." Jordan's pulse kicked. "I didn't want that." "I know," Daniel said. His voice softened. "And we'll be careful. This isn't about leverage. It's about accountability." He paused. "But you need to be ready for what comes with that." She nodded slowly. Ready wasn't the right word. But she understood. A commotion rose near the exit. Cameras now, real ones, long lenses. A voice called out. "Sir, Mr. Williams." Daniel straightened. He didn't move toward them. He waited. The reporters surged, then stalled when security stepped in, redirecting, containing. Daniel leaned closer. "I'm not giving a statement yet," he said. "Not until the review starts. If they ask you anything, you say you're focusing on your program and your well-being." "That's true." Jordan watched a reporter crane her neck, searching for a face that matched the clips. For a second, their eyes met. Recognition flickered. Jordan looked away. They stood to leave. As they walked, a man stepped into their path. Older, wearing a ball cap pulled low. He hesitated, then spoke. "Miss," he said, "I just wanted to say my granddaughter's about your age. You did right." Jordan felt her throat tighten. "Thank you," she said. Outside, the morning had fully arrived. Grey light washed the curb. Taxis idled. Drivers shouted numbers. Daniel opened the trunk and stowed her bag movements' efficient grounding. As they slid into the back seat, his phone rang again. He declined it without looking. The car pulled away from the curb. The airport receded, a glass and steel organism, humming with stories it would never remember. Jordan watched it shrink through the rear window. On her phone, a new alert broke through. "Airline suspends crew pending investigation." She stared at the words. Suspends. Pending. Not endings. Signals. Daniel noticed. "This is the beginning," he said. "Not the verdict." Jordan nodded. She thought of Karen's shaking hands, of the captain's regret, of the operations manager's quiet resolve. She thought of Susan's brittle laugh and Frank's clenched jaw. Systems didn't collapse in a night. They revealed themselves. As the city opened around them, traffic thickening, voices overlapping. Jordan felt something settle into place. Not triumph, not relief, a steadier thing. Resolve without spectacle. Her phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. "Thank you for not backing down." She didn't reply. She turned the screen face down and rested her head against the seat, watching the city pass, knowing that whatever came next would test more than her patience. It would test the story people told themselves about who belonged, where, and why. By midday, the story had split into versions, each one sharper than the last. Jordan watched it happen from the quiet of a borrowed apartment, sunlight slanting across a kitchen table scattered with notebooks she wasn't using. Every alert felt like a knock she didn't open. The words kept changing while the core stayed the same. A young girl in a narrow aisle, an order that didn't belong, a refusal that held. The rest was interpretation. Daniel worked from the living room, voice-low door half closed. When he spoke, it was in clean sentences that left no room for drama. He asked for timelines. He asked for logs. He asked for names. He never asked for favors. Jordan recognized the cadence. It was the sound of an engine being rebuilt, while the car still rolled. She tried to read. She tried to code. Her fingers hovered over keys and stalled. The images came back without permission. The aisle. The hum. Karen's face when the certainty drained. Susan's voice sharpening as the room turned against her. Jordan stood and crossed to the window, grounding herself in the city below. Sirens threaded traffic. Someone laughed. Somewhere a door slammed. Life went on. Her phone buzzed with a number she knew. A counselor from the summer program, voice careful and kind. They talked for a few minutes about options, about support, about the choice to pause if she needed to. Jordan listened, thanked her, and said she wanted to keep going. The truth surprised her. It felt like choosing forward motion when everything else wanted to freeze. In the living room, Daniel ended a call and leaned against the doorframe. "They're placing the captain on administrative leave, pending review," he said. The senior attendant as well. Standard protocol. Jordan nodded. She didn't ask how long. She didn't ask what came next. She had learned that answers arrived on their own schedules. Another alert surfaced. Passenger video prompts airline apology. The clip showed the older woman with the cane, again her voice steady and unshowy. Jordan watched the comments roll. Gratitude. Anger. The same argument dressed in different clothes. She turned the sound off. In a different part of the city, Susan Monroe stared at her own phone, scrolling past names she recognized and names she didn't. Her email pinged with a message from the airline formal and precise requesting statements. Frank read it once, then again, as if repetition might soften the words. Their daughter sat on the edge of the bed, eyes swollen, refreshing her feed until the screen blurred. Someone had found her profile. Someone else had stitched the video with a caption that cut. The cost arrived in small, relentless increments. At headquarters, conference rooms filled. Screens glowed with charts and timelines. A compliance lead pointed to a column of incidents and let the silence do its work. A training director rubbed her forehead and admitted what everyone knew. Patterns don't appear overnight. They appear when nobody looks too closely. Back at the apartment, Jordan's phone rang with a blocked number. She let it go. It rang again. She answered this time. A reporter's voice spilled out, practiced concern wrapped around a question she didn't accept. Jordan said no comment and ended the call. Her hands shook afterward. She sat on the floor and breathed until they stopped. Daniel brought her a glass of water and sat across from her legs, crossed posture, unguarded. "This part is loud," he said. "It won't stay that way." She met his eyes. "Did I make it worse?" He didn't answer immediately. He chose his words the way he always did. "You made it visible," he said. Worse was already there. In the afternoon, the airline released a statement. Not an apology that closed the book. A notice. Review underway. Crew suspended pending findings. Commitment to process. Jordan read it once and put the phone down. The words were correct. They were also incomplete. She suspected they would be revised. Outside, a summer storm gathered. Clouds stacked bruised and heavy. Thunder rolled in the distance. Jordan sat at the table and finally opened her laptop. She pulled up the project she'd abandoned that morning and began to work the rhythm slow at first, then steadier. Logic soothed her. Problems that yielded to careful attention felt like mercy. Her phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. "I was on that flight. Thank you for standing your ground." She didn't reply. She saved it. When the rain broke, it came hard. The city darkened. Daniel's phone lit up with another call. He stepped into the hallway, voice dropping. Jordan listened to the rain on the glass and thought about the people she hadn't seen. The junior attendant who checked her seatbelt with a smile. The operations manager who had stayed. The passengers who had nodded without clapping. Courage didn't always look like speeches. Evening crept in. Daniel returned with a tired smile. "They're moving faster now," he said. "Board wants a briefing. Independent review confirmed." He paused. "There will be pressure to make this about you." Jordan closed her laptop. "I don't want that." "I know," he said. "We'll keep it where it belongs." Another alert chimed. "Airline to reassign crew on affected route, effective immediately." Jordan pictured Karen packing a locker, hands still shaking, thinking about a line she'd crossed without noticing. She pictured the captain rereading a checklist, seeing the step he'd skipped, because speed felt like safety. Accountability wasn't theater. It was quieter and harder. At dusk, Jordan stepped outside. The rain had washed the street clean. Neon signs flickered back to life. She walked a block, then another, letting movement bleed off the day. A woman passing recognized her. Hesitated, then smiled. Jordan smiled back and kept walking. No words. Her phone vibrated once more. A text from her father sent from the other room like a courtesy. "We'll talk after dinner." "You okay?" she typed back. "Yeah." When she returned, Daniel had set the table. They ate without the television on. The city hummed beyond the windows. Halfway through the meal, Daniel's phone buzzed, and he ignored it. For a few minutes, the world narrowed to the sound of forks and the comfort of normal things. Later, as the night settled, Jordan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The story was still unfolding without her permission. Somewhere, files were opening. Statements were being compared. A machine was turning slow and deliberate. She thought of the plane lifting into the dark, of how something had shifted when the wheels left the ground. The hardest part, she realized, wasn't saying no. It was staying present when the echo arrived. Her phone lit softly on the nightstand. One new alert. Airline schedules press briefing tomorrow morning. Jordan closed her eyes. The storm had passed, but the air still held electricity. She felt it in her bones, a promise and a warning at once. Morning arrived with the dull insistence of obligation. Jordan woke before her alarm. The room washed in pale light, the city still damp from the night's storm. Her phone lay silent for once, face down, as if it understood the truce. She sat up slowly, letting the weight of the day settle into place. Today would not be quiet. It would not be gentle. It would be orderly, and that made it more dangerous. Down the hall, Daniel was already awake, jacket draped over a chair, coffee cooling on the counter. He looked at her the way he always did, before difficult meetings checking without asking. "You ready?" he said. Jordan nodded. Ready wasn't confidence. It was consent. She poured herself water, drank it, standing grounded by the ordinary act. The kitchen radio murmured headlines she refused to hear. Daniel turned it off. The briefing was scheduled for late morning, not at headquarters, but in a neutral room the airline rented for moments like this. Glass walls, controlled lighting, enough distance to signal seriousness without surrender. Jordan would not attend. That had been agreed. She would stay out of frame, out of speculation, out of the easy narratives that flattened people into symbols. The car ride was short. Traffic crawled. Pedestrians hurried with umbrellas folded under arms, the city returning to its rhythm. Outside the building, reporters gathered in loose knots, faces alert, cameras balanced like extensions of their bodies. Daniel exited first. He didn't hurry. He didn't wave. He nodded once to security and disappeared inside. Jordan watched from the back seat until the door closed. Then she leaned back and closed her eyes. The driver said nothing. He turned the radio down and waited. Inside the room filled with controlled motion. Chairs scraped softly. Papers aligned. A legal pad was set square to the table corners, neat. Daniel stood at the podium without notes. He let the room settle the way he always did, allowing the urge to fill silence to exhaust itself. "Good morning," he said. His voice carried without effort. "Yesterday, on one of our international flights, a passenger was subjected to an improper request and an escalation that should never have occurred." He paused. "She is a minor. She was traveling alone." And she was right. A ripple moved through the room. Pens lifted. Cameras whirred. "This is not a story about loyalty tiers or seat assignments," Daniel continued. "It is a story about process and what happens when it is bent under pressure. We have initiated an independent review. The crew involved have been placed on administrative leave, pending findings. Additional staff are being reassigned effective immediately." A hand shot up. "Mr. Williams, is it true the passenger is related to you?" Daniel did not flinch. "Yes," he said. "She is my daughter." He let the word land unadorned. "I did not intervene to secure her seat. I intervened to ensure the manifest was checked and policy was followed." "There is a difference, and it matters." Another voice rose. "Are you saying this would have happened differently if she were not your daughter?" Daniel met the question without heat. "I am saying it should not require my last name for a process to work." He paused. "If this incident has shown us anything, it is that reliance on discretion without accountability creates harm. We are addressing that." He outlined steps, training audits, revised escalation protocols, clear guidance on handling minors traveling alone. A passenger review channel insulated from managerial interference. The words were plain. The commitments were specific. He did not promise perfection. He promised oversight. When it ended, there was no applause. There was a murmur, low and unsettled. That was enough. Back in the car, Jordan felt the phone vibrate as if on cue. Alerts stacked each one, a variation on the same truth. CEO confirms daughter on flight. Airline suspends crew. Independent review announced. She did not open the clips. She did not read the comments. She watched the city slide by and breathed. At the apartment, she kicked off her shoes and sat on the floor again, back against the couch. The space felt smaller today, filled with invisible observers. She turned her phone face down and opened her laptop. She worked for an hour, then two, the code absorbing her in ways nothing else could. When she looked up, the light had shifted again. A knock came at the door. She froze, then stood, smoothing her hoodie. Daniel stood there, jacket off, eyes tired but steady. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. How was it, she asked. He considered. Necessary, he said. Incomplete. She nodded. That made sense. He sat across from her the way he had in the conference room with Elaine, posture open. I want to be clear about something he said. What happens next is not about punishment. It's about repair. There will be consequences. There should be. But if all we do is remove people, we miss the system that taught them what was acceptable. Jordan thought of Karen's hands, shaking of the captain's regret. She thought of Susan's brittle confidence and Frank's calculations. Systems were teachers. They rewarded speed over care, convenience, over dignity. When they changed, behavior followed. Sometimes. Her phone buzzed again. A message from the older man on the flight, forwarded through someone else. Tell her thank you. Jordan smiled, despite herself. In the afternoon, another statement appeared. Airline extends suspension pending review. Jordan read it once. The language had sharpened. The tone had cooled. The machine was learning. Evening approached. The city breathed out. Jordan stepped onto the balcony and watched clouds thin into ribbons. She felt tired in a way sleep didn't fix a deep fatigue that came from being visible when you hadn't chosen to be. She also felt something else, a quiet resolve that surprised her. She had not asked to be a measure. She would not refuse it either. Daniel joined her hands on the railing. You don't have to carry this, he said. I know, she replied, but I can hold it for a while. He nodded. That was his daughter. Inside the phone chimed once more. A final alert for the day. Airline schedules follow-up briefing, pending review outcomes. Jordan turned the phone off. She leaned into the evening air and let the city sound carry her forward, knowing the reckoning had passed, the point of denial, and entered the slow, unglamorous work of change. The week did not end with a single headline or a clean resolution. It ended the way real reckonings do, with paperwork, with quiet meetings, with people waking up to inboxes that changed their trajectories. Jordan learned this not from the news, but from the way the world around her recalibrated slowly and without ceremony. On the following Monday morning, she walked into the glass building where her summer program was housed, badge clipped to her hoodie shoulders, relaxed but alert. No cameras waited. No whispers followed. The receptionist smiled and pointed her toward the elevator, like she belonged there. Because she did. Inside the elevator, a man in a suit nodded and returned to his phone. Ordinary courtesy. Jordan felt the weight lift just a little. At the airline, the review moved forward with the patience of institutions that knew haste had caused damage before. Karen's suspension became a formal investigation. Interviews were logged. Training records were pulled. Patterns emerged in columns and dates, not in outrage. The captain's file told its own story. Not of malice, but of habit of shortcuts, justified by time and reinforced by silence. Recommendations followed. Not vengeance. Correction. The kind that hurt because it asked for humility. Susan Munro posted a statement that said too much and nothing at all. It was read past, dismissed. Frank said nothing publicly and began quietly repairing what he could. Learning the hard way that silence could be wisdom or cowardice, depending on when it arrived. Their daughter deleted her accounts and disappeared from the feeds, a young woman learning that the internet never forgets, but sometimes stops watching. Jordan did not read most of it. She focused on work, on the satisfaction of problems that yielded to patience. She took the bus home and learned the rhythm of the city. She called her mother every night and told her about small things. A good sandwich, a line of code that finally worked, the way the river looked at sunset. She slept better. Daniel returned to his office and found it heavier than before. That was the cost of choosing repair over theatre. He accepted it. He chaired meetings where people argued in good faith and others did not. He insisted on records and timelines and independent oversight. He refused to allow his daughter's name to become shorthand for righteousness. He spoke about process and accountability and let others chase spectacle. A month later, a memo went out company-wide. Clear language. New protocols. Mandatory training focused on de-escalation and bias designed by people who understood both. A revised pathway for complaints that could not be buried by familiarity or convenience. A simple directive written in plain terms manifests are facts, not suggestions. Minors traveling alone are protected, not pressured. Jordan read the memo once and closed it. She did not frame it. She did not share it. It was not a trophy. It was a tool. On a warm afternoon, she flew again. Not first class, not economy. Just a seat that fit her and a window she liked. She boarded without incident. The flight attendant smiled and said, "Welcome." Jordan smiled back. She stowed her bag buckled in and felt the plane push away from the gate. No one asked her to move. No one tested her resolve. The engines rose. The city fell away. Somewhere above the clouds, Jordan watched the wing flex and thought about how strength looked different up close. It wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself. It held steady under pressure and returned to shape when the stress passed. She thought about the older woman with the cane, about the man who nodded without applause, about the operations manager who stayed. She thought about how belonging was not a favor but a fact, and how facts needed defenders when convenience tried to bend them. When the plane landed, she walked off with everyone else, another passenger in a stream of lives intersecting and diverging. Outside the terminal, the air smelled like rain and fuel and beginnings. Jordan adjusted her backpack and stepped into it. If this story moved you, tap like subscribe for more stories that hold systems accountable, and share your thoughts below with 3 simple words. Stand your ground.